talk now. This MMA, what we talking about? Yeah, you tuned into the pod now. Gonna be hard for you to stop now. Yeah, we caged in. Yeah, we caged in. Yeah, we caged in.
Welcome back to another episode of Caged In. I'm your host, Chris DiCarlo. Today we got a very special guest making his debut on the show. It is Jay the Joker Perrin. How we doing today, my man?
I'm feeling it, baby. You know, week and a half to go. I'm just ready to fight.
I hear you, man. You got a big one coming up. Cage Titan 67. You're going in versus Jay Pressley for the Bantamweight Championship, a belt that you had held before, going in there to reclaim that thing once again. Before we get into that, man, I do want to get into your background a little bit. So let's just start at the top. Where were you born and raised, and what was growing up like for you?
We moved around a lot when I was a kid. So I was born in Lowell, and I was raised in like Lowell, Dracut, Tingsboro, and then eventually, you know, when my parents kind of split up, and then we went up to like Nashua, and so like the North Shore area is where I'm from. Yeah, that's where I was born and raised for the most part. Lowell, Dracut, Nashua, Hudson, places like
Nice,
that.
man. And as you were growing up, going through school and whatnot, were you playing any traditional sports? And if so, you know, which ones did you kind of dabble in?
I tried my best to play football. I was just entirely undersized for that. And I played baseball. I was actually a pretty good baseball player. I couldn't hit the ball super duper well, but I was really good on the field. And then I want to play basketball, but I'm 5'7", so
Right.
you know, take that for what you will. I can dribble the ball and pass it really, really well.
Yeah, I feel that, man.
Shooting, I'm getting towered over all the time. So I played those sports growing up for sure.
There you go, man. And then what was your ultimate introduction to MMA? You know, when did the sport kind of first catch your eye? And then what was a turning point for you where you're like, all right, I want to get into the gym and, you know, make a go at this thing?
So I boxed when I was 6. So like my grandfather got me into boxing. We all did it for a little while. So I was introduced to like combat sports very, very early. MMA came around because my grandfather at one point forbid us to actually compete in boxing just because he had watched somebody die in the ring, and he was a young kid, and he didn't want me to go through that or his grandchildren. So we found MMA and jiu-jitsu mostly because, you know, the UFC had just come out, and, you know, well, not just come out, but it was in the boom of the early 2000s. And I started watching like WEC and stuff like that. I'm like, this is awesome. You know, this also isn't boxing. And he said I couldn't box. So I'd like to try and get into this. And so I ended up at a Gracie Barra school in Nashua. And then that was where I kind of just started, you know, instead of just watching YouTube videos and trying to piece it together with my tap out friend buddies. I just decided to walk into a gym and get my ass kicked a little bit.
There you go, man. And your nickname, you do go by the Joker. What's the story behind that, man? Give me the origin story there.
So the Joker thing isn't like a thing I gave myself. I've had it since I was about 13. So I've had so my mental health journey has been something that I've cataloged before. It's just something that's been on my mind since I was little. I've had a lot of mental health issues since I was a kid. And I had a mentor, or more of an adopted father, that I had that kind of gave me the moniker of the Joker. And it was like a whole speech behind that is the Joker accepts himself for who he is, even though he understands he's crazy, he's a homicidal maniac, but he's at peace with who he is, and that's enough for him. And so he kind of reflected that upon me and the lessons that he taught me. And so he passed away when I was about 22, 23. And so I just kept the moniker to kind of honor him. Just a good man who taught me a lot of good things. So that's where that came from.
Yeah, man, definitely a deep story behind there. And I like when nicknames have deeper meanings like that, man. So that's cool that's kind of stuck with you throughout your life as well. Let's talk about your fight style a little bit. You know, you have fought in the UFC, you fought on some big stages. You're also a household name here in the New England MMA scene. So a lot of people have seen you fight before. But for those that haven't, man, how would you describe your fight style to them?
I think I would say I'm a jack of all trades type thing, is that there's no one area where I'm really lacking. There's also no one area that I specialize in. But for mixed martial arts, I think you need to be able to blend all of your skills together really well, unless you're an Israel Adesanya, or, you know, and even that has its limits, as we can tell, as you could see. You know, he fought a guy who looked like he was falling over himself and lost a title just because he mixed it up really well, you know. So I would say that, you know, me and Jay Pressley are kind of like that. I'm just a better version of that. I can do it all. I remember when I was young training, I was like, I don't want any one place where I just don't have any answers. That's terrifying to me, to be in a spot where I'm like, I'm fucked. I have nowhere where to go. So since I was relatively new to the sport, I realized I was going to have to dabble in just about everything. So I would say I'm pretty well rounded altogether. Although most of my finishes are subs.
For sure, man. Let's get into your MMA career a little bit. You are 11-8 as a pro. You're the Cage Titans former bantamweight champion, also CES bantamweight champion as well. Yep. Let's go back to 2019, man, when you get that call to get on Dana White's Contender Series versus Dwight Joseph. What was it like getting a call like that, man, and an opportunity like that, fighting in the Apex for the first time, having a crack at a real shot at the next level?
It was great, man. It was nerve-wracking. As it would be for anything, didn't go my way that night. I thought it should have. So did Dana White, and that was just one of the many times I've gotten screwed at like a higher level. It was an unreal experience. The Apex felt more like an at-home fight. Even the Cage Titans seemed like a bigger venue than that. So it was very quiet, very intimate. To be in there, and they, unlike at home where you can kind of feel the cage out, they give you like 5 minutes to figure it out, and then they husk you back into the locker rooms and get you ready to go. But it was definitely really cool, and it was the first time I ever got like a taste of real media work, and that shit sucks. It's just very time consuming. It was definitely for somebody that was like just not used to that kind of organization. It was an experience.
Yeah, for sure, man. And then off that those experiences might have paid dividends, once you get the call to the UFC in 2022. You were out living in Vegas at that time, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. How was it like, living out in Vegas full time, living and training and, living the fighter lifestyle out there in Vegas in that time of your life?
Vegas is a beautiful, wonderful, awful, terrible place all at the same time. I love it there. It's one of my favorite places in the world. Very dog eat dog in Vegas, and not that that's a bad thing, but I think my skills grew exponentially, even though I didn't come out on the better end of that when I left Vegas because of, being cut from the UFC. I still believe I became a better fighter with each engagement that I was in. I loved it, there's a lot of freedom. You can do anything you want in Vegas. You can be anything you want in Vegas. Loved it. Would recommend anybody should go there and live there for a little while. If you're a fighter, definitely go out there. It's where everybody goes. Top fighters in the world. If you can do a camp, you can do half a camp at any of those places. You should go out there and try it for sure. Because if you want to measure where you are compared to like the best people in the world, I'm sure that people from here would be surprised. The gap between them. So Vegas is wonderful, man. It really, really gave me a lot of knowledge and experience.
Cool, man. And, you did have your UFC career out there in Vegas in 2022. Unfortunately, you go 0-3 and, short stint inside the UFC. How would you summarize your UFC career, man? And what did you learn most about that time?
Man, you should take your time with the matchups that you're given. It's okay to say no to things. For anybody that's feels like they're forced to. I felt like I was forced to take fights I shouldn't have. But it was a great. I got to work with the PI. I got to, I got all of that. It was wonderful. It really was. I came up on the short end of the stick. I fought a guy who's fighting Jose Aldo. The guy. I have two losses, and honestly, I believe I beat Arichi Lang, and I'm at least grateful that I put on a great performance in that fight. I got to display at least two of those three fights that I can scrap. Because the Batista one I lost, but it was a competitive fight. Arichi Lang, I believe I won. And, what can you do? I didn't put myself in a good position to win the third and final one. And that was my decision. And overall, though, I wouldn't trade that to be successful in the regional scene. I would rather do that and fail and move on. I did there. I got there. I gave it my best, and I just ended up on the wrong side of that, and now maybe I make my way back, but it starts with beating Jay Pressley.
100%, man. When you came back to New England from Vegas, you moved up to 145 when you fought Boogs, and then when you fought Chris Mecate, you were at 145 also. Why'd you decide to ultimately make that decision to go up a weight class, and how did your body feel, in camp and in the fights being a little bit heavier?
So the whole reason I went to 45 was because the last fight on my card, the fight with Raul Rosas, I cut a dangerous amount of weight, like enough to change the weight cutting protocols of the UFC type deal. I thought I was dying. It was very close. I just shaved my head. That was sometimes I've never had to do that ever. I made weight, but at the cost of generally everything. I remember being in and out of consciousness on like the bathroom floor. So it was just a very traumatic weight cut, and it didn't feel good, and I didn't want to do that again, especially having taken a year off, just to get my mind right and want to even fight again. So I had been eating whatever I wanted. So I'm like, I'm not going to jump into this camp where I'm just going to suffer more, and I'll just go up a weight class and just float around there. And then after the Boogs fight, I kept it just because I was kind of feeling myself. I'm like, well, Boogs is bigger than me, and I did pretty well against him in there. I didn't feel too outsized. And then they fight a guy like Mecate, so who I thought was a really big challenge, and he was. And I think he's rattled off a few more since he fought me. An NCAA All-American. If I can beat this guy, that's definitely the caliber of guy that would put me back in the light. It was a risk, to go up, but I took the risk fighting a bigger guy with a great resume. It didn't work out, you know what I mean? But it just showed me that, okay, well, I can't fight at 45. I'm just not small enough, or I would need to take time to frame into being a 45er. But that was really what it was. It was mostly like I had a really bad cut with Rosas, and it was traumatic, and I wanted to stay away from it. The second Mecate fight was me kind of my ego kind of taking over that, and then just learning the lesson that, hey man, I might be a really skilled fighter, but at a certain point, size kind of matters, and that's how that ended up. So I decided, you know what, let's go back down to 35. I originally wanted to do this fight at 140, but they were like, just to kind of whittle my way down, but they were like, hey, we'll put a belt on it. So I'm like, fuck it. Send it. Let's go. I'm all for it. So that's how it ended up that way. So I'm the king at 35. I'll just stay the king at 35 until, I can't make 35 no more.
There you go, man. Let's get into that one then. Cage Titan 67. You're going in there versus Jay Pressley for the Bantamweight Championship. You're going, like I said, you're going back down to 135 for the title. What prompted this move back down to 135? Was it the fact that they put the belt on the line and that's what would really give you that final push to accept it?
Yeah, I wouldn't have, honestly. I'd have been like, nah, man, I like the matchup. I like it that it's for a belt. You know what I mean? It's better. I wanted my belt. It's not ideally who I wanted to fight for the belt, but that guy's a chicken shit. But if it had been not for a belt, I'd be like, all right, well, I'm not doing 35. I would have rather take my time, but I said I wanted to eventually work that way. Presley was supposed to fight for a different belt, for a different promotion, or similarly. So he wanted to fight for a belt, and I really like 5-round fights. So I said, fuck it, why not? Who doesn't like another belt? That'll be my 4th professional title. It's just something to put on my mantle at the end of the day. So if it had been just a regular 3-rounder, I'd be like, nah, dude, we're doing this at a different weight. So, but otherwise, it's not that I'm too big or anything like that. It's just a lot of work, to get the weight down, and I'd rather put on a performance than, a weight cut. So luckily I've been working with a great dietitian, and the cut has been smooth. I'm more fueled than I've ever been and leaner than I've ever been. So it doesn't really matter. So I'm going to make 35. It's not just about making 35, that I'm going to perform really, really well on top of making great weight. So it's going to be a good time.
Awesome, man. Love to hear that. Very excited to see you step in there as well. How do you feel? What do you know about Jay Pressley, man? And then how do you feel about him as an opponent?
Jay appears to be just kind of a jack of all trades kind of guy. 8-4, so he's got experience in there. He's been in there quite a bit. He's been there with Johnny, so he's at least able to stay in there under fire or chaos. Because I watched that fight a few times, and Johnny is very unpredictable and just kind of swings from the heels. And so, he's stuck to his game plan. That's something that he's really good at. We're going to see how well he can do that in our fight. He has good lateral movement. He kicks, pretty decently hard. Good shots. You know what I mean? He'll shoot, the shots are clean. They're far away, but they're clean. When he comes in, he tries to, fill the space really well. So, he does a lot. He's very busy, is Jay Pressley. So, but in my opinion, there's things that he does for a guy that has 12 fights that are just very green, that are very, you wouldn't normally see that from a 12 fight veteran, so I intend to exploit them, and generally pretty early. And then we'll just go from there. I don't, I'm not discounting his credit or his skills or, his ability as an athlete. I think he's a great athlete. Let me just say that. I think that he's very athletic, and that kind of carries his skill a little bit. It's less that he's a really, really good technician. He's an okay technician with a really good athletic skill, which can still be dangerous. I just think that there's a lot of holes that he can exploit, and Johnny being able to walk him down like he did a couple of times was pretty eye-opening for a few things. So I have my ways of what I'm going to be tricky about, and we'll see how he reacts to it. But I think I have all the respect in the world for him. I do think that he's just a lesser version of me.
Nice, man. And you were, the Cage Titans Bantamweight champion in the past. How special would it be for you to get that belt back and reclaim that title?
Oh, that makes me a 35 GOAT. That makes me the GOAT at 35, at least in Cage Titans. Because then I will have won it, defended it, and then reclaimed it all without having a loss. That makes me 3 times, and then another 4th, the CES champion. It just makes me, at least in New England, it makes me, one of the best to ever do it at 35. You know what I mean? I might not be a top 10 guy in the UFC, but as long as I'm winning belts, I'll be the fucking best gatekeeper you've ever seen. So, and I'm cool with that. So for me, I think that'll stick in a few people's craws when I win another belt. My hand gets raised, and I win another belt, and then it's just like, okay, well, now what? So it would mean a lot to me. I would really like it. It means a lot to me, and I'm going to go with everything I have towards it. I put quite literally every ounce of energy I can into this camp, and it's going to show on September 14th, guaranteed.
There you go, man. And you mentioned that, you were, when you wanted to fight for this 135-pound title, that Pressley wasn't necessarily the guy that you were looking at to fight. I'm assuming you're talking about Joe Penafiel as the other potential opponent. What ended up happening with that fight? Why is that one not the one that's going down this weekend?
He's just a chicken shit at the end of the day. I mean, I'm not going to give him too much airtime. He was the champion. The only reason I wanted to fight him was because he had the belt. Otherwise, now I have no use for him. I've been trying to fight him for 4 years, several years, just because he runs his mouth in my inbox a lot. And then I say, well, fight me. And then he, goes off on this little tangent about how this, that, or the other. He's going to eat steak and pasta or some stupid shit. So, it's just a boring. I would rather him have sacked up and been like a man and actually backed up his words. But he couldn't. And Mike finally, after giving him a bunch of chances, decided, you know what, you're not coming back. So if you want to come back and earn it, then by all means. But we're moving on. And so Jay Pressley was there. Here I am, and I'm thankful for the opportunity because there's a lot of people that they could have picked over me. I totally get why some people are like, why would he get the shot? I get it. I lost my last fight. It's an upper weight class. I after I win the belt, I will defend against any and all comers, whoever you'd like. But I'm just grateful for the opportunity, and I intend to make the most of it.
Nice, man. And one last question. What can the fans inside Plymouth Memorial Hall expect from the return of the Joker on September 14th?
I think you're going to see a wide range of mixed martial arts skill in this fight. You're going to see takedowns, you're going to see scrambles, you're going to see good strikes. I'm trying to keep standing, baby. I want to make this a nice little kickboxing match. But, if it goes to the ground, I grapple every day. So I do believe we're going to have ourselves a nice little slobber knocker, but I do believe it ends in the 3rd or 4th round. So I don't think it's going to go all 5. I think we're going to get a high pace, high action fight for 3 rounds. And by the end of the 3rd or the early 4th, I'm going to put him away.
There you go. Jay Perrin, I appreciate the time, brother. Thanks for coming on. Before I let you go, man, where can the people come find you on social media, and anybody you want to shout out or thank before I let you go?
Just before I go, I want to say just thank you. Obviously, maybe she might not even read. Pardon me, she might not even see this, but my girlfriend for helping with the baby, and her brother and everybody that's helped me with my baby. As I'm training, and the whole Lozon crew for kind of rallying around me and Randy Costa, Joe Lozon, Peter Barrett, who will be in my corner. Those guys are always supporting me and pushing me to my absolute best. So I really, really appreciate those guys and everybody that's come out to support me. It's a great, I didn't think that I would get as much support in this one, especially with the last card being as big as it was. So I'm really, really grateful for everybody that's got my back here, and I can't wait to put a show on for you guys. If you want to find me on Instagram, it's at @lastlaugh_Perrin on Instagram. So that's pretty much where I remain. So
there we go, man.
That's it for me.
All right, Jay, I appreciate it once again, man. Thank you for coming on. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, thank you.
Got down for the count and he can't even talk now. This MMA, what we talking about? Yeah, you tuned into the pod now. Gonna be hard for you to stop now. Yeah, we caged in. Yeah, we caged in. Yeah, we caged in.